I have all of my items set up, but I actually don't have any way to purchase these yet. So the next step would be to go up to the vendor center and add some vendors. You have to remember that this isn't exactly the order that you have to do them in. I could have entered vendors ahead of time, but I want to go ahead and click on this now. Notice that Office Supplies R Us is already here because we wrote a check to them and did a quick add, but we didn't really set up the entire vendor, which is what I want to do now. We can click the New Vendor button on the left side of the screen to get into the vendor form. It's actually a pretty basic form. You put in information like the vendor name, if they have an opening balance, information about their company, additional info as well. I'm going to go ahead and order my CBTs from Total Training. And I currently don't have any balances due. I can go ahead and press Tab. Notice that it does not fill in the company name. I always thought this was interesting. The vendor name and the company name are separate, if you will, so I have to type it again. I could also put in some personal information if it wasn't a company. This is really important to notice the difference. If I enter a company name, I do not want to use the Mr. Ms. first name, middle initial, last name. I want to use one or the other. If I have a contact within a company, then I enter that name on the right-hand side. It's a little bit different, and I don't think QuickBooks does a really good job of telling you how to use these different things. The phone number, the fax, and all of that information is also important, as well as the addresses, alternate contacts, emails. You can even have a CC. And maybe one of the most important is how do you want it to print on the check? Sometimes you have people who are working under a DBA, and so they want their company name in your company file, but they want the check made out to them. Or maybe there is a different company name that should be used or a different way that you refer to them. In any event, for mine, it actually matches, so we're okay this far. I'm going to click on the Additional Info tab, and I can put in my account number with them. We'll say that it's UT001. I can then use some of the different features to categorize the type, the terms, credit limits, and even a tax ID number. So these are actually a supplier. My terms with them are net 30, and I have a $5,000 credit limit. I don't know what their tax ID number is, and I really don't need to know that. The reason it's asking for a tax ID is more appropriate when we talk about the checkbox down below. If you work with certain people in your company and you pay them over a certain amount of money each year, you have to give them a 1099. Now, they're not actually an employee, so they don't get a W-2 form, but they do get a 1099 to show the income. If somebody is incorporated, they usually don't require a 1099. It would only be sole proprietors because they have to claim that as income. It gets kind of tricky there. If you have any questions about whether a vendor needs to be 1099 or not, you can ask them, or you can ask your accountant. Either one would work. That's all I need to do for my vendor, but I want to do one more, so I'll click Next. That way I don't have to open the form up again. And this is going to be UCERT. Even though I spelled it the same way, it is not related to the training company. We're just trying to use names that aren't taken by anybody else. We don't have any opening balances. This is actually the company I'm going to use to purchase my vouchers from. Since you've already seen most of these fields, I'm not going to go ahead and go through them all. I'm just going to click OK, which takes me back to my vendor screen, and I can see all of my vendors are here. Currently, they all have a zero balance. But now I am able to either write checks or to write POs to purchase inventory from any one of these three vendors.